So thank you, Jennifer. Excellent presentation. I know we've covered a lot, and so if some of these questions have been answered in a slide, sometimes our attendees miss it. If we could just maybe cover it again briefly, so forgive that redundancy as questions come in, and just as quickly as we can answer as many as possible before we close out today. But we have somebody asking your advice here. Is it a good idea to have the expert write up a report for every investigation? And when specifically do you recommend having an expert write the report?
I don't think it is a good idea for the expert to write a report at all until we litigate the case, actually. So, and I know some insurance companies require that and you have to do it. But if you do, I would just have them put in a clause that says this is subject to change based on additional information. But I don't ever have them write them, unless the only time I do is if I really feel like I can get the other side to settle before we file suit. Then I will do it, but otherwise I don't.
Excellent. And another question: How do you bring a claim against another party for spoliation? Spoliation. This is hard for me to say. Probably easier for you. Of the evidence. Thank you so much. I'll let you take over.
Yeah. That is spoliation. People do say it differently. But so it's very difficult to bring a direct claim for spoliation. And I've worked, one of my clients, I put together a chart for them on this issue because it can be frustrating if the other side destroys your evidence. So can we sue the other side for destroying the evidence? It's hard to do that in many states. In Colorado, the courts have not established a direct cause of action. In some of my other states, there may be a little bit more room to do it, the other states that I work in, but it's not as clear-cut as it seems like it should be. So it really depends on doing some legal research in the particular state that you're looking at.
Excellent, thank you. This one on condominium complexes coming in. How can you pursue a claim in a condominium complex when it happened in another unit and perhaps you did not send an expert to the scene?
Yeah, these are the hardest types of cases. Condominium cases are difficult in general, and I've presented a whole seminar just on that alone because it can be very difficult to get into the other unit, to gain access. I had a case just settled last summer where the person, he knew that the water loss was coming from his toilet down. It was coming down. It wasn't actually overflowing the toilet, but it was the piping for the toilet was flowing into our insured unit. And they went up there to try to get in there, and he refused access. He wouldn't let the management company, the company that managed the building, would not let them in. So that's how we started, which is a terrible way to start because we don't have all the information we need. So we had to gather facts based on kind of what we could find out what was going on from our unit below. Eventually, we were able to get in there and see what we needed to see, but not at the time it was occurring. So it made the case a lot more difficult to pursue, but it can be done. We've relied on information from the insured, what we could see from our unit. We sued them so that we could get into their unit to get the facts we needed. We gathered information from the management company. So it can be done. It's just a little bit more difficult. If you've got a smaller case, you don't even have enough money to hire an expert on it. You can sometimes bring in a trespass claim for maybe water that was trespassing, or even a fire under your unit in addition to other claims. So there's ways to do it. It just isn't as easy as a normal case.
So let's stay on property here for just a minute. Do you have to have an expert for every property subrogation claim?
No, of course, I would love to have an expert on every case because it makes it so much easier when we're pursuing the other side. But if you absolutely can't afford it because your claim is too small, it doesn't mean that you can't do something with it. So it just depends on the type of case that you're dealing with. If you've got enough information from maybe the authority, perhaps the fire department was out there and could help you, or the police department often has a report depending on what happened. So you can use other avenues, sometimes just information from your insured may be enough. It's not a great way to do it, but it doesn't rule out the possibility of pursuing your subro claim.
Okay, and before we wrap up, I know we have just a couple of minutes, but if you could, in just a few seconds, if we have a question asking your advice on finding the best way to find a specialized expert, is there a resource there that you would recommend?
I think that is definitely reaching out to other people. So I have a vast list of experts, and I meant to mention that there are experts in every kind of area. So, fire experts can be good. I have a fire expert that's great at chimney cases, so I have him on those. Or you have ones that are good with vehicle fires. I think the best way to do it is, even if you're not going to, use your attorney, you can still ask them for advice on who they would recommend for experts. And then the other way that I do it is, if I haven't used an expert in that particular field, I can reach out to other lawyers that I know, and sometimes other experts too, to find a particular expert. For instance, I had a expert I used last year in figuring out whether or not a company properly put warnings on their labels. And I had used this expert a while back, but I reached out to some other lawyers who had used him recently, and got him involved in our case. So it's really a network, and it's a networking thing. So other adjusters, management, other lawyers, other experts, it's really how you go about finding the right expert for your case.